If you know who I am and you see this picture, that may look a little familiar. That's the Nottoway Plantation. And so if that looks familiar to the end of Swamp Fever, you'd be correct. We sent some people down to do some photo reference, and I had actually suggested this one, Oak Alley, but we decided this was just too plain and too simple, and so we wanted something a little bit more ornate and a little bit more complex. But here is the problem always with this stuff. Those are backdrops for a video game because those exist in the real world. Those are real places. Those are real places you could have gone to. In fact, we show that's a little bit under construction, not a repair, not construction, because it's already been constructed. But like we use those places as real world references to our game. I'm comfortable with that. But the weird thing is, did you know when we were making Left 4 Dead 2 and we announced it, I got called racist by this one whole website, the whole article on how I was super racist because we were putting Left 4 Dead 2 in New Orleans, and this was after Katrina. I don't think this person knew that I had lived in New Orleans, that I went back after Katrina when there weren't a lot of tourists going back as a way to try to give back money to the community. Actually, back got married there. Like it's an area of the world I love, and I show it and that love for it by reflecting it in its space. So we see the South in numerous places, and the South is super problematic. When I lived down there, I voted for the crook. If you're from Louisiana, you know what that means. I voted for Edwin because the other person to vote for was David Duke. Yeah, the KKK guy. Right? So it's like that place that I both love and hate, and it's really complex, and it's really not complex. It is evil lives alongside of the traditions that also make it why I love it. From the music to the people to the culture to the food. Now, that website then also went on and said I was sexist because of the Midnight Riders. So I don't think they were that bright because they couldn't understand parody. But it always bothered me because like this burning down, man, that doesn't bother me at all. Trust me. Like, yeah, I'm fine if we get rid of those. But we also can't ignore what happened, that those aren't places of like getting your wedding there, or like that is weird how they've become these touristy things versus like going and learning about the history and understanding that place in history and how horrible it was and just what horror happened at those places. And the weird thing is we lived in the quarter for a while, and one of the places we lived, we actually lived in the slaves' quarters, the home behind the home. Of course, fixed up and super nice. Can't pretend that's what it was like, right? But that's one of those things of those cities that embrace their culture and their history, and they have so much of it. And so, again, I just wanted to, for our game, I wanted to call it out. And I'm kind of curious about how people think about that, because I think we've changed how we talk about things, right? So now all of a sudden, like Left 4 Dead would be woke because we have black people in it, and oh my God, you can't have that. They can't exist. Or I don't even know. Like, I don't know. But like this, so I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. In Cleveland, Ohio, you will like laughing, right? I'm an old man. Would make Cleveland jokes. Everybody made Cleveland jokes. David Letterman made Cleveland jokes. And they did it because the writers were from Cleveland. And that was a kind of your way to say, hey, there's a Cleveland person here. There's actually a Cleveland joke in the Left 4 Dead series. And that's like that little call out. And so often I think of these kind of things as call outs similar to that, but in a different way. But it is not to ignore the grossness of what those places were. But they are also part of history, and we shouldn't just like ignore them, right? Statues and all of that is a weird thing because you're highlighting and you're worshiping, or you're uplifting somebody in that space, and I don't think that's right. I'm kind of curious of how people think about that, and especially seeing that, and then hearing people talk about it recently and bringing up the history of it. I had not known the full history of the people there at that one. Not that we would have changed it, because it's still a historical place, and you're going through that area. One of that area, we also took from was we used to go down and go canoeing, which is weird because now it's like there's a freeway that runs through the Lafayette Basin, Lafayette. It used to just be the swamp. And then it got kind of more built up and they kind of changed how they talked about it. But it used to be out in the middle of nowhere and there's this bar that you had to sign a release to rent a canoe from. And the bar was, guy ran it, was called Earl, or the bar was called Earl. We named our canoe Earl after him. But yeah, you could buy beers and then rent a canoe because you could also drink and drive back then down there. So like we wanted to really embrace that, especially in that Swamp Fever campaign, because that's a lot of like what I love about that area. So yeah, it's just weird to see it and be like, oh yeah, because that place isn't that place to me anymore. It's the place in the game, and it doesn't have that connection, even though it does. So there you go.